Okay, so now we're going to talk about the embargo and the consequences of that decision. Um, Part of the reason why Jefferson believes that placing an embargo is a good idea is because he wants to punish the British for the continued oppression of American sailors as well as a blockade. So part of what's happening here with Britain is, remember, they're fighting the French, they're fighting Napoleon, and they need to replenish the number of sailors that they have. Um, so remember that impression has been a problem already between the United States and Britain, a problem that had not been addressed by the previous administration and Jay's Treaty. And so under Jefferson, the idea here is that by placing an embargo and not trading anymore with the British is going to be as a punishment for their continued impressment of American sailors and the blockade. So what this means is Jefferson's administration is essentially saying that Americans cannot trade with the British anymore. Okay, they do believe that the British are very dependent on American imports, such as wood and cotton. And if we cut off trade with them, then Britain is going to stop impressing American sailors and stop the blockade. So that's the theory, okay, that Americans are going to somehow benefit from this. But the opposite happens, in part because Britain is too busy to notice, okay? So the opposite happens here. They don't notice the embargo. They don't notice that they're not getting things from the Americans, and they just go get it somewhere else. They go get cotton somewhere else. And when you look at Jefferson's policies, remember, it's supposed to nurture, foster this agrarian nation. They're not supposed to lead towards more manufacturing, but that's exactly what happens. Britain's too busy to notice. The impressment continues. The sale of American goods declines because we're no longer trading with the British, and the plan completely fails. So American manufacturing actually increases now that we're not trading with the British anymore. And this is exactly why his policies, Thomas Jefferson's policies, are going to result in the opposite of what he claimed to champion. So again, let's sort of recap what we discussed today. The first claim here is that he claims to champion small government, but his policies actually resulted in increased federal power more than anyone ever before. We also talked about how he imagines this vision. The vision is for an agrarian republic, a nation of farmers, but his policies actually lead to increased manufacturing because of the embargo, because we're no longer trading with the British. Americans have to create these things for themselves. And so manufacturing increases, the cities are going to grow, and people are going to become wage earners. And so that's exactly the opposite of what he wanted. So again, the other thing too is, he wants to foster freedom through, growing the size of the nation and, claiming that all men are created equal and all of that. But again, reminder, he owned slaves and he had no problem taking land away from Native Americans in that continued expansion of the United States. So, to sort of recap, Jefferson's administration is full of contradictions. Claims to support one thing, but the policies result in another. And once he's out of office, the guy that's going to be left to deal with all of these consequences is James Madison, his Secretary of State. You know him as the primary architect of the U.S. Constitution. Now he's going to have to be left to pick up the pieces. And all of that tension, all of those consequences are what leads to our war with England in 1812. So pay close attention to that. and we'll be back for the next one. Okay, so have yourself a good day, and I'll see you in the next PowerPoint to come. So we'll be starting with, it's actually on the next slide, but the era of good feelings, the post-War of 1812 world. And so we'll talk about those consequences. We'll talk about, how there's really only one political party that's dominating American politics, and the Monroe Doctrine and the market revolution. So we're getting closer and closer to the next unit. And so if you have any questions, don't forget, send me an email, get in touch with me through Zoom, whatever it takes. I'm here for you guys. Have a good one. Bye.